Our speaker tonight is Henry Scheuer. Where's Ed? Ed.
I'm right here.
Ah, there you are.
You want me to introduce Henry?
Oh, that would be wonderful.
Okay, actually, I think Henry is an amazing fellow. He collects first aid covers unlike anybody else I know. And I was going to say he has an encyclopedic knowledge of first aid covers, but that's too small. He actually has a server's knowledge, a computer server's knowledge of first aid covers. And he looks at them in ways that I just have never seen anybody else look at them. I won't go into a long introduction. I'll just say with that brief introduction, tonight's topic is U.S. first aid covers, rates, routes, and markings. Henry.
Thank you, Ed. Welcome, everyone. I see that in our audience, we have collectors and non-collectors, collectors that collect first aid covers, and others who don't collect first aids at all. Well, everyone does have some sort of pattern to their collection. And their pattern really is based on some sort of book or text, a catalog, a specialty book of, if you collect stampless covers, there are reference books that you start and you spring off the reference book. Let's look at the first slide and I'll show you the book that I employ. The Stamp Atlas mixes geography and philately. It's a wonderful book that tries to answer the question of what is a foreign country, when did stamps get printed and when were they used, from what beginning date to end date. Let's go to the next slide. We'll look at the back cover. And here you see more elaboration of what this Stamp Atlas book is. And from this list, I endeavored to build some sort of structure of what is a foreign country. And foreign countries are independent or they're colonies. Those are two different countries. There are from dates and to dates. If you add this as if you begin here and you add the Universal Postal Union information and the United States Postal Service information, you can build a very nice little Excel spreadsheet, if you will, of what a country is. And from that roadmap, and we all have our roadmaps in collecting, whether it's a pre-printed page for an album or whether it's a list of all the Revolutionary War generals, and we're trying to get autographs from all those generals, that is the guide where we want to pursue. Let's go to the next page, please. Now here's a page from my address to foreign destinations spreadsheet. It's an Excel spreadsheet and it's about 600 countries. And on the left side, you can see which countries I have, they're numbered, and across the top, it's imprecise because, it's still a work in progress. But every time I find a country that is a suspect that I don't have, I go back to the spreadsheet and I go back to the book for further elaboration. And then I even go to the internet because the internet is the ultimate repository for everything. So in this talk, the advance notice mentioned a whole group of countries that I would show. Well, that's not the case. I just threw that out the window. I threw different ones in here. And I realized, what order should I put these covers in? I decided random is the best order to put them in. So we're going to see first day covers from, quote, easy countries, the large European countries, maybe, and very difficult stamps. Well, not really. And we'll then see some inconsequential first day covers, more recent ones, uncached, from almost impossible stamps, countries. So we'll start off with the next slide, and we'll start at the top of the mountain. This is the most expensive cover in the lot. It is the 2-cent Hudson Fulton stamp, placed on sale September 25th, 1909. And the reason it's here is because I went to the island of Jamaica, British West Indies. It's a full color advertising cover that has had the two ends sliced, exploded, and you see all of the full color advertising. You see the receipt marking, and you see the first day postmark, September 25th, 1909.
Breaking up badly.
Every one of these postmarks every one of these covers must have a receipt marking. Otherwise, I don't want them. And I want them all to stay in the country, not be returned to sender or fictitiously addressed. So from the most expensive cover and the earliest first day in this presentation, we'll go to the next slide and we'll see probably the least expensive cover, but a very difficult country. And this is Kazakhstan, which became an independent entity in December of 1991. Now, ideally, I'd love to have a first day cover going to Kazakhstan backstamped as early as possible. So this is 8 years after it was founded, but it is backstamped. And it's difficult to find this kind of material. I find this from dealers, collectors, and on the internet, of course. Let's go to the next slide. We'll go to a difficult country as well, IFNI. This is a very unsuspecting cover, uncached. You probably find this in a 10-cent box. And that's where I found it. It is backstamped, but I failed to make a photocopy of, or make a scan of it. So there you see IFNI. It's a Spanish province, and they issued stamps independently from 1941 to 1968. And the population of that country, of IFNI, is about 51,000. AOE is an abbreviation for Africa Occidental Española, or Spanish West Africa. Let's go to the next slide, and we'll see a real first day cover. The 5-cent Hawaii stamp, 1928, very nice label cachet, and a fairly good destination, the Straits Settlement. And the Straits Settlement started issuing stamps in 1867. So in theory, I ought to have a much earlier example than this, but I don't. The Straits Settlement ultimately went away. I guess in 1946, they stopped issuing stamps, and ultimately the Straits Settlement became Malaya, Singapore, and British Borneo. Let's go to the next slide, please. Rates, routes, and markings is one of the titles for this talk, as well as foreign destinations. This is a rates, routes, and marking cover. A nice Prexy, 25-cent rate, special delivery, and it has all sorts of an interesting address. And what is the SS Manhattan to make the SS Manhattan sailing on September 23rd, 1938? The SS Manhattan in March of 39 became the ship that transformed the Jewish children leaving Hamburg to New York, also called the Kinder Transport. So when I bought this, I just thought it was a very neat address, but there's a tie-in to the Kinder Transport in World War II. Not a foreign destination, really, yeah, England, but a very interesting addressee. Let's go to the next page. Speaking of presidentials, the 50-cent rate, registered to Madagascar. Nice Prexy, and there you see the back stamp. That is a very nice Madagascar destination. And Madagascar started issuing stamps in 1889, and they went all the way to 2019 when the name changed to what, the Malagasy Republic, I guess. The Malagasy Republic is a different country. I have no representation of covers from the Malagasy Republic. Let's go to the next slide. Here we go. The back stamps are the thing that really appeal to me. And the front in, I guess that's Italian, has some sort of return to sender connotation or registered waiting, claiming, something like that. But the back stamps really tell the journey of the 70-cent franking. Registered airmail to Ethiopia. And the next slide. This, you have to be very careful when you go through first day covers, because this is one you'd probably skip, because there's no fancy anything here other than reading the address, Monaco. The violet bars over the stamp you see to the left of the stamp are really saying, hey, don't send this airmail. The airmail stationary, the border indicates please airmail, but 8 cents franking will be surface rate, not the airmail rate. So that's my Monaco first day. They started issuing stamps in 1885, and the country's population is about 38,000. That's a large country compared to the next slide and the next country. Let's go to the next one. Here's one that I found, and it puzzled me as to what this was. Fairly common first day cover, complete with Scotch tape stains, keeps the price very affordable. It's addressed to Republic Argentina SA, South America, and the city, whatever it is, TF is Tierra del Fuego. And the rubber stamp that you see, the middle at the bottom, is Islas Orcados del Sur, which translates into the South Orkney Islands. Now, the city that it's addressed to in Tierra del Fuego is the largest city in Tierra del Fuego. The South Orkney Islands has a population of 45 people or so in the summer and 11 people in the winter. So I don't know what that's all about, but I'll check off my South Orkney Island destination with that cover. And it's a real ordinary, nothing cover. That marking makes it. Let's go to the next slide, please. Well, as long as we're going to obscure destinations, let's go to a place in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, Tristan da Cunha. And this cover is acquired actually in New Jersey at the Somerville, New Jersey AmeriCover about, the first one, probably 15, 20 years ago or more. And what's appealing is you do have the Tristan da Cunha administration postmark, no dated postmark, and a due for marking. So I'll check off Tristan da Cunha as a destination. Now, at the time, the stamps that were being used were really overprinted St. Helena stamps. Okay, let's go to the next slide. Try to stay with small countries. The Faroe Islands. The Faroe Islands, 1943, population about 40,000. This cover was purchased in Washington, D.C. in 2006 from a Danish dealer. And he brought a lot of material from U.S. first day covers going to Denmark, and a couple of them going to the Faroe Islands. I knew of a gentleman who collects these foreign destinations as well. The dealer was morbidly overpriced, but I bought both of them, marked the other one up just a little bit, eased the pain, and kept the nicer of the two covers. The next cover is for Ed Grabowski. And this is going to the U.S. consul in St. Pierre, Nicola. In 1943, censored and received in St. Pierre, Nicola, off the coast of Newfoundland. I don't know how much mail really goes there, but on first day covers, it becomes much, much more difficult. Now, let's go to some interesting destinations. And these covers, this cover has a mail service to country suspended. And on April 30th, 1975, the falling of Saigon, the evacuation of Saigon and Vietnam occurred. This first day cover, postmarked in Lexington, Mass, is addressed to South Vietnam.
From Alabama, so back in our home state, right at 10 points per game, 8 rebounds per game.
And meaning with the basketball game.
The 6'6" junior wears number 20 from Cary, North Carolina. 10.1 points per game, 8.4
And
who it is. Here we go. Yeah.
there we go. I hope he stuffs the ball in the basket. Anyway, so now we see that this cover, April 19th in Lexington, it's back stamped in May in Boston. It may have never left the Massachusetts area because they may have realized in the US that service had been suspended. So it's an attempted delivery, but someone in the Bay Area in Eastern Massachusetts said, oh, no, mail suspended in Vietnam. And this was picked up at an APS show, actually. I didn't know why it doesn't fit in my collection, yet it's a wonderful, wonderful cover. Let's go to the next cover. And the next slide, please.
Oh, sorry, hang on.
Okay, next slide.
Okay.
Whoop,
Yep.
One back. And the next slide, we'll go back one, is a similar Vietnam cover. And there you see Saigon, Vietnam, temporarily suspended service, returned to sender to fortunately, the gentleman on the back flap on the reverse did put his address, so it could go return to sender. And finally, to wrap up my little presentation here, let's go to the next slide. And this cover I bought from Arnie Leiter, the late Arnie Leiter of Uncle Sam Stamp and Coin in Waterville, New York. And he offered this to me for $10, and I couldn't quite figure out what it was, but it's a fascinating cover. Ordinary first day cover of 1956, and it's addressed to Altamont, NT. NT is Northwest Territories. And the post office took this literally, and it went to Canada. And on the reverse side, you see that, well, it's February 22nd, first day. Then on March 3rd, it was dispatch branch in Edmonton. And you also see a Winnipeg postmark and somewhere on the face. And somewhere up in Canada, they realized that Altamont did not exist in the Northwest Territories, but it does exist in New York, in the Capital District area up near Albany. And that's where this cover was bought, in Waterville near Albany. So someone rechanged the address to redirect it to Altamont, New York. Sounds like a very easy thing to do. It ought to be now directed on its way to Altamont, New York. That was not the case. Whoever, somewhere in its travel, one of the postal clerks took a look at the postmark in the first day of issue postmark, saw the word Mount Vernon, and looked at the address, which was changed to New York, and he put the two together, Mount Vernon, New York. And the cover goes to Mount Vernon, New York. And you see on the reverse side, the postmark for Mount Vernon. And the people in Mount Vernon obviously said, this says Altamont, New York, let's send it on its way. So you see that on the front of the cover, missent to Mount Vernon. It leaves Mount Vernon, it goes to Altamont. Very strange routing. And what makes it truly unusual is that some postal clerk chose to read Mount Vernon, one postmark, and then the address, New York, and mix the two and send it to Mount Vernon. That's my presentation, fairly brief. And I would like to entertain any questions, observations, comments.
Well, thank you for the presentation, Henry. Question for you. What made you decide to collect? I know you collected first day, of course. What made you decide to collect the foreign destinations? Was it an idea you had, or was it a cover you came across? You said, yo, this looks like fun. Let me see if I can acquire more of these, the foreign destinations.
Probably the latter, but I don't remember exactly when that started. I do know that one dealer once mentioned that they guessed that 1 out of 10,000 first day covers was mailed to a foreign destination. I have no way of knowing if that is true, or if it's 1 out of 1,000 or it's 1 out of 100,000. But the fact that these things are somewhat scarce, 1 out of 10,000, drew me to the area.
So do you collect them all, or you just, once you have your destination, you're set with that destination and you don't buy the next one?
I want one as early as I can get it. So if I can knock the date back in time by 10 years or so, I'll pick up that cover. Now, as it turns out, you go to Canada, that's very easy. Toussaint Columbia in 1893, that's my Canada representation. That's an easy country, difficult stamp. If you want to go to Germany, 1898, Germany, I'm not going to beat that. I don't want to see, but then Germany becomes West Germany and East Germany. And so those are different countries. So that's the way I collect, and I have lots of duplicates. And every so often I trade to issue specialists, the people who exhibit those issues. It's a lot of fun.
So I know how you feel. Go ahead,
How many
David.
countries do you have now, Henry?
I have about 170 different countries out of 600. And remember, we're counting countries such as the Indian states in the proper period and the German states in the proper period. And the German states are a little early to start getting fussy, but Indian states, when I see first day covers going to India, I really have to sit down, carefully examine, do they mean this state or that state?
Well, plus they have to be backstamped.
Yes. And they have to be backstamped, that's right. Some countries don't backstamp their mail if it's first class mail, but the special services, registered, insured, tend to get backstamped.
Henry, I got a question. Recently I saw you gave a presentation on JFK first day covers. And now you've got this question. How many different first day cover collections do you actually have that you try to maintain?
I just collect US first day covers from 1851 to 1999. Originally one for each issue. I like unofficial cities before 1930. I like Project Mercury, the surprise issue in 305 cities. I do collect the July 171, not aggressively. I collect the 5-cent Kennedy, May 29th, 1964. The first day to foreign destinations. I collect back of the book. I collect the earlier possessions pre-1930. And what else do I collect? So yes, I do collect things like international apply coupon first days and that sort of things. Postal savings stamp first days. Some revenue stamp first days, the early material. That's about it. I don't really go into cachets. Along the way, I have a pretty good cachet collection. And then plus I do collect inauguration covers, focusing on pre-1929 material.
But what do you do to keep yourself really busy?
He calls me.
Well, one of the big secrets here is to be organized, take all this information, put them on Excel spreadsheets, make certain that you have it backed up somewhere. And I do like to print them out, to put them in a notebook. So when I go to shows, I carry that notebook. When I come across a batch of suspects, you'll see me with my head down with this notebook, just looking like the homeless guy looking at a notebook.
Well, that's probably the hard part when you go to shows is trying not, knowing what you have so you don't buy a second example.
Somehow I have a pretty good memory for if I've seen one, it looks familiar. But I always carry my list as a backup because that's the definitive reference source. About 10 years ago, maybe 15 years ago, I started using Lotus 123 and now Excel to document and to build on my personal little catalog. As I mentioned at the beginning, we all have our implied little catalogs that we build in some fashion, a want list, what we have, and ideally what we have seen, but we don't have. We know other collectors, or we missed it at auction, or someone who's too high a price at a dealer's table. It's good to record that information so that you know that it exists. But the use of Excel spreadsheets helps a lot. And of course, going to places where there are many covers, some of the big cover wholesaler places, go to their offices and dive in and spend a day looking through shoebox after shoebox after shoebox after shoebox.
Oh, God bless you.
Well,
How many
we all have-
covers total do you have in the collection?
I probably have, well, with duplicates, I have a total of 50,000 covers. In
Wow.
my collections, I probably have 5, 10, south of 15,000.
Wow.
For
Where
for
do you
this
keep
collection,
them?
Henry, is there a price above which you will not pay? In other words, is there a ceiling?
It's a great question. It's a really great question. When I first went to my first public auction in 1971, Simi Jacobs in Boston. And this Sam Title was a West Hartford, Connecticut collector who had his collection sold at Simi. Lots of great rarities, but I never bought anything that was older. I serviced the current issues. I asked myself 2 questions. 1, have I ever seen this cover before? If the answer is no, stay awake. You don't need any coffee, just go for it. If you've seen it before, close your wallet, unless it's really cheap. So there are some very high price covers that it took me a long time to acquire. Notably, the Zeppelins, all 3 on 1 first day. That's a matter of price. They do exist. They're around. Close your wallet until it comes at a reasonable price. Conversely, if there's a foreign destination for some obscure country where I have my little database, my want list, and I don't have it, don't tell the dealer I don't have it. because I'll pay the price. So if I've never seen it before, I'll be there. If I've seen it before, just I'll see it again, maybe, although I'm getting a little old for that, but okay.
Great collecting philosophy right there.
With regard to St. Pierre and Miquelon, of course, you know, there are lots of first day covers coming out. Yours is the only one I've seen going in.
And that's the case of Tristan and Kahuna. There's a lot of mail coming out, but going in, good luck. So looking at the overrun countries in World War II, there are, for some reason, a lot of censored covers, first day covers going to foreign destinations. And I have a fair number of overrun country stamps on first day, 5-cent rate, good. And they're censored and they're going to some pretty funky countries. And I'm missing a lot of countries, easy countries like Bhutan, easy countries like the
Montana.
Malagasy Republic, easy countries like Georgia, Soviet Georgia, Kazakhstan. Oh, Afghanistan. I'm missing Afghanistan. Now, I do have Aden, I do have Yemen, I do have Bahrain, but there are a lot of countries that are really almost impossible. I need to get on my horse and write email to a lot of the foreign dealers, because foreign dealers are likely to have this kind of material.
Henry, a question for you. Bob Markovitz was always on the lookout for a first day cover of the overrun countries of the French flag stamp going to France. Did you ever find one of those?
No, I never did. And I knew Bob fairly well. And I bought from him both when he was a dealer and when he had his auction company. And if he never saw it, and again, he and the late Austin Menaker, who worked at the Philatelic Foundation, were going about trying to collect modern postal history. They were one of the early dealers to start trafficking in post-World War II modern postal history. So if Bob Markovitz didn't see that sort of material, that makes it even more elusive. That was a very good set of eyes to consult.
So it hasn't been seen since. You've never seen one. That's very interesting, because he
Well,
looked for a long
that's a wonderfully interesting comment. I'm only one set of eyes, and I've only been looking for a few decades to jump to the conclusion that there aren't any. And I'm not saying you are jumping to that conclusion, but to jump to that conclusion isn't quite proper.
I think based on his comments and your comments, we could certainly conclude it's a very rare, sought after item.
It's rare until when I go to Sacramento and go through a box and find a dozen of them.
Sort of self-embarrassed. I was at some APS show and I had my head stuck in a dollar box, and I was a little embarrassed. Gee, I should be. But I'd sort of run through all the dealers and didn't have anything I wanted. So I'm peeling through the $1 box, feeling like an orphan. You showed up and started digging in for first day covers. I think we had a little chat, and pretty soon we were joined at other boxes nearby by Tony W. and John Hotchner. And suddenly I felt not at all embarrassed. I'm in great company. Here are all these distinguished philatelists looking for their thing in the dollar box, because it's unrecognized by most dealers that this is of anything of interest. And it goes flying into the dollar box.
I was in Columbus, Ohio, going through a dollar box, and a gentleman who collects these Kennedy things came up and started looking through boxes just by my side. And he did that for about 20 minutes. And then he said, I've got to go to lunch. I'll come back. Well, he never did. But that dollar box did uncover some small Iowa towns that I didn't have. They were not cached. And it sent me off to Wikipedia to look up and improve my knowledge of US geography. So that's sort of fun to use the internet as a resource. I use the internet as a resource on South Orkney Islands. I looked at YouTube. There's a video, and all I saw were icebergs and penguins. It's a wonderful video, very nice video, beautiful penguins. And it helps me understand what these countries are. It's the modern day version of what we did as kids when we would find stamps from Kenya with elephants and giraffes and travel the world through those stamps. Now we can add the dimension of YouTube videos to our addressees or our routes or rates or markings.
Henry, I would imagine that going to US shows around the country, like Rosemont last year, Omaha, gives you a wider variety of covers to look at. For this collection, have you considered going to an overseas show, such as the upcoming London International, or do they not have dollar cover boxes there?
Well, they may. It's all right. You don't have to have a dollar cover box. I have purchased covers on the more serious material, the pre-1920 material, from people who've gone to Europe and brought things back and paid for their airfare gladly. On the lower price material, I used to get up to Montreal quite often, and I attend shows up there, and there's a bit of a different complexion. The pickings are pretty slim, and when you travel to different countries, I was thinking when we were in Belgium 2, 3, 4 years ago, you'd stop in stamp shops, and the covers, the US covers are too small a subset to really be able to justify it. If you're traveling overseas, I'm a big believer in seeing the sights of that country, not going through a cover box looking for fairly inconsequential things. I'll let the dealers bring them over here and put the serious material at auction. And I really want to do let my fingers do the walking through emails and snail mail to find these from foreign dealers. But I'm not traveling to London for this, sadly.
Okay. Well, it's a fascinating area to collect, and God bless you for carrying on with it. I wish you all the luck in the world.
As they carry me away.
Yes. But it'll always give you something to do, that's for sure. You can never say you're finished. So
True.
thank you again for letting us take a look at this part of your holdings, and hopefully we can get you back and show us some other parts of your different collections. So thank you very much, Henry.
Maybe we could do the Kennedy
And
first.
maybe
Day
if you have a
Jersey.
chance, stop over on April 2nd. Was that?
Maybe we could do the
Okay.
John F. Kennedy covers postmarked in New Jersey.
Maybe, Henry, you could get a lot of frames. You put all 15,000 covers in the frames and be the entire Westfield exhibit.
If you help me.
Good night, everyone.
Thanks a lot, Henry.
Thank you.
Okay, Henry, thank you very, very much.